we can be this, and I could be encouraging, and I could say, it's okay, that's all right, you'll get there eventually. No, I don't think that's useful. I think encouragement can be often mistaken for sympathy. And when you give someone sympathy, you don't fix shit. In fact, you reinforce the problem. It's okay to be where you're at. It's okay that you messed up. It's okay. No. Why is that acceptable? If you do that shit in business, you lose money. You lose employees. You lose business and customers. Right? And you would say, fuck, we can't do that again. But when you miss meals, when you sleep in, when you don't do your workouts, when you skip your cardio, right? It's the same thing. You're removing the inputs that yield the results and progress that you're looking for. So if you just view yourself objectively and say, look, I'm doing this shit wrong, right? I need to fix it. Having somebody that tells you that is to your advantage, right? Having a central authority in your life until you learn to establish your own internally can help get you to where you're trying to go, right? Good morning. I had a fantastic trip this weekend in Sedona. However, my stomach is really fucked up. And this is exactly why I do not like to eat off script. Because it will destroy your digestion. Especially when you're used to eating healthy. I eat, very structured, organic. My body's used to the same foods every day. And then when I throw it a curveball and say, hey, you know what? You're going to have some fucking orange chicken from some Chinese restaurant. Man, your fucking intestines feel like somebody took it through a blender. I am not feeling right today, friends. I can tell you that. That being said, back to routines. This is why I think routines are so important, because you see how something small like this can completely set you off. Like, it can completely throw you off your game. And, I would almost argue to say that I feel like it'll definitely affect your performance. If you mess up the energy conduit, right, your nuclear reactor, your fucking stomach, the thing that extracts energy from your food, if you mess that up, you're probably not going to feel too great. So I encourage you to use this as a message. Like, it's nice to go out and enjoy yourself, but just be conservative. And also, be smart. Be smart. The Italian food I had at that Vespa restaurant, it was so authentic and clean, it just did nothing to my stomach. But the one time my wife was like, hey, let's go get some Chinese food. All right, fuck it, let's try it. No more. No more. My shit is rock, dude. I almost got like a rawness down there, if you know what I'm saying. Not good. All right, anyway, we got some back today. So what I'm going to start off with is doing some barbell rowing. And then we'll get into some isolated lat focus. So we'll do some pull down stuff, we'll do some pullovers. We'll hit some upper back, some rear delts too as well. And we'll get nice and saucy today. All right. Oh. All right, so just warming up a little bit. Not doing anything too heavy today with the rows. I'm not sure it's a good idea to bend over with a whole bunch of weight right now with this stomach thing I got going on right now. Let's be safe. But I'm gonna do a few more sets here. Just have about 135 on there. I'm not gonna really push myself with the bench over rows. I'm just going to focus on some nice isolated work. But I like to start off with some sort of complex movement to get everything stimulated. Okay, I think that's about it for the rows. I feel pretty warmed up now. Feel definitely like I'm lagging behind a little bit. It's crazy how much your digestion can play a role in your overall energy levels. Like when your body's immune system is flaring up and triggering something in digestion, how much that can like offset your focus, your energy. Feel winded. Crazy how just one weekend of getting off nutrition script can completely send you down a fucking hill. And this is why I try to preach routine so much, is it's hard to get up the hill. It's easy to fall down it, right? So make sure you stick out, on the days that even you don't want to fucking do it, It was nice to go and relax, feed the soul a little bit. I do encourage that. However, it definitely can put a dent in performance. So we want to make sure that we're accounting for that, And ask yourself, are the things that you're doing right now aligned with your long-term vision? Is anything you're doing right now going to conflict with that vision? And if it is, you got to have a conversation with you and your God. Is that worth it? Is that right for me? And I can tell you right now that eating out is nice, but I much prefer eating my own food, if I'm going to be honest with you. I do that more so for my wife. Make the sacrifice, but at the same time, this feeling fucking up my stomach. I'm not sure if it's worth it, friends. All right, I'm done complaining for the day. No more complaints, no more negativity. I'm just trying to get a message across to you with saying, I know a lot of people like to be we'll say Monday through Friday on routine, and then they fall off on the weekends. That's pretty easy to do when you take out some of the structure. But I encourage you to create that structure on the weekends. Wake up at the same time, leave the house if that's what's necessary, but set yourself up for a system and routine that's going to help you succeed and reach those long-term goals, because if not, you can throw something like a little wrench in the equation and it can set you back a couple of days. It's not a couple of weeks. It really just depends on the severity of the fall. So we're going to get back to this today. No bitching, stay positive, get your head in the game. Shaking off the negativity, the lackluster energy. Let's fucking do some reps here. Let's fucking get after it. All right, so let's get rid of that piss poor energy I was projecting for the first couple minutes there. I'm feeling a little bit better that I'm moving around already. Anyway, we do some pullovers, okay? So I usually do these with dumbbells. However, I will also alternate do them with cables. Same thing with flies, right? Same concept. So when you have a cable, you can usually change the angle of the tension because you're not relying on gravity as your profile to pull the weight down, right? Because when you hold a free weight, it only gets pulled in one direction, down, right? But when you have a cable, you can vary it. How's it going? When you have a cable, you can vary the tension. So the line can actually change. It's not just going to be straight down anymore. It could be on an angle, and that can be advantageous for very specific muscles. Sorry, there's some guy that was just randomly staring at me the whole time I was filming this clip. That's why I said something just now. Anyway, let's get back to this. Some pullovers. So you can use a straight bar, you can use a curved bar. You can find whatever feels best for your grip. But right here, straight arms, pulling through. Similar concept, if you ever feel this movement in your triceps, it's because you're pushing too heavily with your hands. You need to learn to relax your hands. They're connected to this. and you need to learn to pull from your elbows. When you track from the elbows, that's what's going to target the lat more, and you're going to get more of that tension underneath the armpit opposed to in the tricep, okay? So when you're pulling through this movement, you can change the grip around. Probably put my thumbs over top. Don't squeeze too heavily because this is going to engage the forearms. I decided that I was also going to throw in some dumbbell pullovers. I feel like my lats are a little bit tight. So one of the best ways to loosen those up is to stretch them. So I did the cables over there, and the cables are really good for that bottom half squeeze. But the stretch, you need to come overhead. So you can only lean forward so much before it starts to compromise with the cable. So having a dumbbell too, and having that additional leverage of pulling my arm overhead will really help stretch open that lat. And if you're feeling any type of like shoulder restrictions, it's probably due to your chest and lats, like yanking your arms down and forward. So I like to make sure that when I'm doing my other movements, like when it comes to upper back or any type of rowing variation, that my lats are loose, because if not, it's going to compromise my ability to actually engage my back. So what I'm doing is stretching them out here. I just did the cable pullovers, and now I'm going to do some more with dumbbells. I'll probably do a couple more sets here, and then we'll get moving on to some other rowing-based movements and focus more on the upper back. So again, this is going back to what I was previously speaking about training more intuitively, right? You have to go based on what your body's feeling, because your body doesn't operate off a rigid system, right? You could try to program and plan things, but at the end of the day, your body's going to feel certain ways on certain days. And that may be something of conflict when it comes to what you have programmed for the day. So I like to have some variation and learn to listen to my body, right? What is it telling me? You know, am I feeling tight somewhere? Well, maybe I need to do something to loosen that up. You know, maybe I need to do something to stretch it out. Maybe I need to do something to mobilize. Maybe I need to do something on a corrective exercise basis to help regain control over that area. So depending on what you're feeling, you're going to have to learn to pivot and make adjustments based on what your body's telling you. That's creating a partnership with your body. Instead of forcing it to do something, now you're working with it instead of against it. And they say if you want to go fast, go alone. You want to go far, go together. That goes with your body too. Like, you want to last in this sport for a while. You want to live for a long time. You want to prevent injuries. Well, then you need to learn to listen to what your body's telling you. And that comes in the form of nutrition, like I was mentioning this morning about eating off fucking strip. That also comes with the training side of things, the recovery side of things, when you need to take rest days, when you need to back off and regress, when you need to change your exercises, when you need to drink more water because maybe you're feeling dehydrated. Learn to listen to your body, and when you do, your results will skyrocket. All right, so let me tell you the cheat code for building a well-developed back. And that cheat code is this. When you're picking exercises, you need to think about the planes of pulling. Okay, what I mean by that is wherever your elbows go is where you're relatively going to train on your back. So if you feel like you're lacking development in a certain part, maybe it's the lower back, like the lower lats. Maybe you're not having that good sweep coming in. Well, anything that's going to angle your elbows to that lower lat, whether that be pulling from a high angle down or even pulling from a low angle coming up real low to the waist. Wherever that elbow goes is where you're going to target on the back itself. So you need to look at your back, take some pictures, take a video, and see where you're lacking development. And you want to put a lot of your focus on movements where your elbow is going to align with that part of your back. And that's what's going to help really bring out that fullness and completeness to the back. Most people just do like some lat pull downs, you know, and they'll do some rows, and then they'll do another type of row on a machine, and then they wonder why they have no inner back development, why they have no traps. Well, you need to focus on retraction, because if you're just doing movements where you're driving your elbow back into like an extension motion like this, you're just going to train this part right here. But you need to get a pinch as well. So that's going to require some sort of abduction movement, like bringing your arms apart or pinching the shoulder blades independently. And that's what I'm doing right here. So a lot of people ask me questions about how can I get that, like all those like shoulder blade muscles, like the muscles around the scapula, right? The muscles around the inner back. Well, you need to pinch the back. Not just pull your arms to your body, but you need to really try to get your shoulders to touch from behind, okay? So what I like to do is try to get some sort of independent pulling movement. And what I mean by that is getting a movement where you're going to actually be able to use your arms separately with cables and be able to spread them apart and go wide with your elbows to a nice big pinch in the upper back. So let's go ahead and hit some of this. All right, so again, coming to a pinch, leaning back with my elbows, grabbing onto my handles, chest up really high. Remember, don't tuck the butt underneath like this. You want to sit more on your hamstrings so you get that butt behind you. And then I'm driving my elbows straight backwards. Big pinch in that upper back. And again, did you notice how I was pinching my shoulder blades, right? Pinching my shoulder blades. I was not simply just driving my elbows back, because I could just do this, right? I could just drive the elbows back and get no pinch at all, right? Or what I could do is I could pinch my shoulder blades without even bringing my arms back. So what you want to do ideally is get a combination of pulling back and pinching the shoulder blades simultaneously, because when you can get that rhythm in sync, that's when you really get that back development towards the inside of the shoulder blades. Now, whenever you're thinking about developing the upper back, like I was mentioning, you can either pull up on an angle or you can pull down on an angle, because your elbows really dictate where the line of tension goes onto the back. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab a bar in a high position, and I'm not going to pull straight out in front of me. I'm going to try to pull to my neck, because when I pull down in front of me, I'm going to engage my lats like this. If I pull to my neck, though, what I'm going to do is engage my rear delts and my traps and get this pinching motion that you see. And that's what's going to help develop that upper back. So I'm going to pop on over here, go into a nice kneeling position, and I'm just going to pull straight down to my neck. Nice and easy. Okay, let me put this down so I can sit and explain. It was getting a little corrupt over here, and then I'll put this back up. Anyway, so when we're thinking about doing any type of abduction movement for the back, which means we're separating the arms apart, almost like you're doing like a reverse fly, right? Now, there's so many different ways you can do it. I've showed you on cables, I've showed you with kettlebells, there's machines that you could do it on. But there's also a way that you could do it with a little bit of chest support. So as your weights start to get heavier, or if you're feeling like your lower back's a little bit tight, one of the things that you can do is use like a chest supported row. Or a chest supported seat. So when we angle this up a little bit, it'll allow me to keep that angle that I need without putting any pressure in my lower back. Okay, so I'm going to elevate this up to probably about 30 degrees. I'm going to actually stand and lean into it, and then I'm going to do my reverse fly motion for dumbbells. And what that's going to allow me to do is to still get that good separation, still get that good squeeze, but to also complement that natural angle without me having to be stable, right? Without me having to bend over. So if you have like lower back issues and you're still trying to target your rear delts, and if you don't want to use a machine, you don't have cables available to you, this is a good alternative for you. Have a nice chest supporter. You go ahead, run past. You're good. Have a nice chest supported row. Chest supported reverse fly rather. So let me put this up probably about 30 degrees. Okay. And I'm going to grab onto my dumbbells. Okay. Bending over, staying leaning forward, and what I'm going to do is try to go straight back on an angle. You want to try to keep your wrists and your elbows rigid. Okay, so I'm moving from the back of my shoulders. I'm not going like this. Okay. That's going to be that's like external rotation. That's going to actually target a totally different muscle. Instead, what I'm trying to do is go straight to the outsides, keeping my elbows nice and rigid. Okay, so that way as I increase my weight, I don't need to worry about any extra stress on my lower back. I can just put my weight pivoted on that seat to take it out so I can focus on movement. Because remember, isolation is key. I'm not trying to train a whole bunch of muscles at once. I'm trying to focus on one at a time. And the more I can capitalize on that, and the less distractions and obstacles that I have in front of me to do that, the more benefit I'm going to get on that muscle itself. So I'm trying to remove all of the things that would take stress away from the area I want to put it on. So give this a shot and let me know what you think. The very last thing that I'm going to be finishing up for back today is going to be another mag grip attachment. I'm going to actually use this small one right here, this tiny little one. And what I like about these mag grips, I mentioned before, it has this beveled area to where it's a perfect area to put your thumb. It's like ergonomic. So it'll take stress out of your forearms, especially during rowing motions with like close grip, because a lot of people have this tendency to curl their wrist in, and that causes a lot of tension to develop inside the forearm and less stress to be distributed across their back. So what these mag grips do is it takes out a lot of that forearm and it puts the weight more into the muscle that you're trying to train, like your back in this situation. These grips are literally just designed for mainly back movements. You can get creative and you can use them for other things. However, they're designed mainly for back movements and pulling, because that's where people usually generally get the most forearm stress. So I'm going to finish up with this, do a couple more sets of seated rowing, close grip, to try to tie in a little bit more density and thickness into the lats, like pulling out. And then from there, I don't know, maybe I'll do like one ab exercise. I'm going to see how I feel towards the end of this set. And if I feel like there's any areas of my back that I feel like need a little bit more attention, then I'll utilize that feedback and I'll add some more volume where I see necessary. So we're going to play around with this a little bit, do a few sets. Let me show you what that looks like. Oh. All right, time for a bit of cardio here. Let's pump this up to my 3 speed. Go to my 5 incline. You know, years of being a coach, I've experienced a lot of limiting beliefs and negative mindsets. And I think the one that gets me the most is just a victim mindset. You know, when people look externally for something to blame instead of pointing the finger back at themselves, it's this figure of speech is, you know, people are pointing the finger instead of the thumb. And one thing that I know for certain is as long as you do that, you remove control and power from yourself. And I always try to ask people, I'm like, look, I say, when you blame other people and other circumstances for your problems, does it make you feel strong or weak? You know, probably makes you feel pretty weak. So why are you focusing on the things that you can't control? Why are you focusing on what other people are doing? And why are you looking for reasons to blame those people and circumstances for the reason why you are where you are right now, where you're at in your life? And it's a very toxic way of thinking. And I don't recommend that you adopt that style, because it will almost certainly not solve your problems. In fact, it'll probably reinforce them, because you're not fixing them, right? Instead of looking for solutions, you're dissecting the problem further, but you're not actually seeing what's causing it. You're just adding kindle to the fire, right? By saying, you know what's there? I don't have what I want because of this person, or because I grew up this way. How the fuck's that benefit you? Doesn't. You need to have responsibility and agency. Like, you have to be willing to accept that you are in control of your circumstances, and all the decisions that you made up to this point have been yours. And if you don't accept that responsibility, how can you ever hope to fix the problem? You're not even looking at it. You're turning your head to it. So if you get into that victim mindset, you better find a way to get yourself out quick. And I think the first thing is just accepting, you know what? My problems are nobody else's except mine. It's nobody's fault except mine. It's called responsibility. And as long as you fail to see that, you're going to continue to fail to fix it. Awareness is key in these situations. So look, if you're experiencing that redundant victim mindset, you gotta take a moment and self-reflect and really ask yourself, is the complaining getting you anywhere? And if it's not, well, then it's a waste of fucking time. Stop doing it. If you're whining, if you're complaining, if you're pointing the finger, you're hurting nobody except yourself. I hope you realize that. And this isn't meant to insult you or make fun of you, but if it is, I would question your values, and I would question if you even have something in your life that you're aspiring for, or if you're sitting in this whirlpool of insecurity and doubt that you can't get yourself out of, so you blame other people for it. It's a scary place to be. Let's not do that. Anyway, got that out of the way. So finish up some back today. Something to keep in mind here is one thing I've noticed and learned about myself over the years is when I get stuck in these cycles of thinking, because I'm not going to say I'm above what I just spoke about. Everybody has periods of weakness, losing seasons. It's okay. That happens. What's not okay is if you recognize the problem and you don't get yourself out of it. And I've had these moments, and I realize that generally, when you're in this cycle, you're not aspiring towards anything, you're not growing in any dimension of your life, and you're complacent and bored. You have too much time to think. And the only thing that will render thinking is doing, right? Executing. This is why routines are so important. If you wake up in the morning and you say, I want to be healthy, so what should I do? You already set yourself up for failure, because you're trying to think about what needs to get done when you should have set up a system or routine that's simple and effective to where you don't have to think. Because when you open up that door of thinking, you open up that door of self-negotiation. It's kind of like this. I'm hungry. Now I could go home and make food, or I could stop by somewhere and get something real quick, right? Just to satisfy myself. I'm hungry. I want something right now, quick, tasty, delicious. And what you're doing now is you're taking your goals and you're tossing them to the side. If you want to get in shape, if you want to get healthy, it's common sense to think that eating out is not going to get you there, right? So you've now compromised your goals because you have not set yourself up with a routine and a system that has eliminated that self-negotiation and thinking. You have to fix that. There's a solution to this. The solution is keep it fucking simple. You should know what you're going to eat when you go to bed at night the next morning. You should know what you're going to wear. You should know what time you're going to leave the house and go to the gym. You should know what body part that you're relatively training, right? And if you set your morning up for success like that, well, then it's super simple. But when you wake up and you think, well, I'm tired. Well, maybe, I got a lot of stuff to do today. I might as well just sleep in a little bit longer because then I'll have more energy. Wrong. You're going to wake up and you're going to feel guilty about offsetting your goals, saying no to yourself. It's not going to make you feel like you've rested anymore because you realistically probably only rested for another 20 minutes to an hour. And that's going to set you back. And I can tell you, the one thing that will fix that is advancing in your life in some way with some sort of system or routine that is mindless, that removes that thinking and that self-negotiation. If you don't have that in place, well, you're going to wake up and you're going to try to make decisions. Guess what? You're going to fail. Like if you try to make decisions when you're hungry, when you're tired, when you're in fear, when you're anxious, when you're depressed. That's not a good, fertile headspace to be making decisions. You need to stop that completely in advance and be smart. You're going to set yourself up for failure. You have to be able to pivot, but you can only pivot when you have experience, when you have knowledge, when you've gained momentum at some point in your life. And now conditions have changed to where you need to make a change. However, you can't get to that point if you don't have some consistency to start with. Because pivoting without having previous success or consistency is just constantly changing things. And that will get you no definitive result or solution. You only need to pivot when necessary, especially when it comes to routines. Like you wake up and maybe, there's a fire in your business, right? Maybe one of your fucking employees didn't show up because they're sick today or something. I don't know, whatever the case may be, right? There may be some type of extenuating circumstance that forces you to pivot, even in business. You know what? The market is no longer taken to your product or service. You need to change it. There's more competition, right? You need to pivot. Oh, the economy starts to go sideways. People start getting more conservative with their spending habits. You need to pivot your marketing, right? You need to pivot your messaging. You need to create more demand for the thing that is that you supply the world with. Pivoting is essential, right? At certain points. But pivoting without necessity, right? Pivoting without it being needed, right? Like on your way home from work, when you're hungry. Well, I better pivot and go to the store or go to the fast food restaurant and get myself something quick. That is not pivoting. That is making bad decisions because you've set that up, right? Pivoting is necessary when unforeseen circumstances enter your life. But making poor decisions is just making poor decisions. And you can't rationalize that. Oh, I'm hungry, I need food now. No, you made bad decisions, which is why you're in this circumstance. You haven't prepped your food in advance. You haven't identified the high return foods that are going to actually give you good quality energy levels, and they're going to help you reach your aesthetic goals. So you got to have routines, got to have systems. You got to have things in your life that are like automated, so you don't need to worry about it. Like every Monday morning, I get a little notification from Bitcoin or from Coinbase. It says, your Bitcoin is now ready. I set something up on an auto deduction or an auto transaction to buy myself some sort of asset continuously, week after week, because that's how you build wealth. But if I were to sit there and I were to think, well, do I buy Bitcoin? Do I buy Ethereum? Do I buy XRP? Do I buy Dogecoin? Do I buy Solana? Do I buy Cardano? No. I say, Bitcoin, I'm going to set it up automatically, and I'm going to allow myself to slowly accumulate wealth. Not thinking about it, right? Your health, you need to automate, okay? You've not done that yet, which is why you're facing such a struggle point in having to make decisions that you're not really sure how to make. And, we can be this, and I could be encouraging, and I could say, it's okay, that's all right, you'll get there eventually. No, I don't think that's useful. I think encouragement can be often mistaken for sympathy. And when you give someone sympathy, you don't fix shit. In fact, you reinforce the problem. It's okay to be where you're at. It's okay that you messed up. It's okay. No. Why is that acceptable? If you do that shit in business, you lose money. You lose employees. You lose business and customers. Right? And you would say, fuck, we can't do that again. But when you miss meals, when you sleep in, when you don't do your workouts, when you skip your cardio, right? It's the same thing. You're removing the inputs that yield the results and progress that you're looking for. So if you just view yourself objectively and say, look, I'm doing this shit wrong, right? I need to fix it. Having somebody that tells you that is to your advantage, right? Having a central authority in your life until you learn to establish your own internally can help get you to where you're trying to go, right? This is like consultants in business. You hire somebody not to tell you you're doing a good job. You hire somebody to tell you, hey, this is where you're messing up right here. You see this? You need to fix this because this is causing a problem with that, which is infecting this, which is affecting employee satisfaction, customer satisfaction, and you're tanking everything down, right? That's a simple fix. So just do that. And you don't say for how long or, no, that's just what you do now, right? That is part of your routine. That is part of your system for success. And if you don't set that up, well, you know what's going to happen. That's why you hired the consultant in the first place. Because shit's not going your way, right? We got to fix it. So when it comes to your health, I don't believe in giving people sympathy. I don't believe in encouraging them until they deserve it. Because otherwise, you'll gain a sense of false momentum. It's just what I've learned over the 15 years of doing this. I say, great job, you did really good today. Well, guess what? Next day, you're going to show up and think, well, I did all right yesterday. Maybe I can skip today. Maybe I can give a little less effort today. No, you keep giving more, right? Business is war, and so is your health. There are so many forces working against you on a consistent basis to make you more unhealthy, right? The food that you eat, the contaminants in your environment, the stress at work. There's so many factors that play a significant role in making you unhealthy. It's almost like the odds are stacked against you. So what are you doing to combat that? You know, what do you do in business when all the odds are against you, right? You traded a 40-hour-week job for an 80-hour-week job. You wanted to not work for someone else and face the struggles and uncertainty of business. Why? Well, when you approach your health, you're doing the same thing. You're taking on a very large responsibility. You're taking on a very large uncertainty. And there's a lot of factors working against you all the time that you need to learn to combat. But when you get over the hill, it's a hell of a lot easier, my friend. But the problem is, it's not just getting over the hill, it's getting out of the ditch, which is where most of us lie, right? It'd be like, on the way up, it's difficult, you know. Frequently, the conversations I have with clients, they say, the first million's the hardest. From 1 million to 10 million, it's easy. From 10 million to 50 million, it's even easier, right? As you have the right habits and systems in place and as you gain experience, and as the asset becomes to develop and become stronger, less effort's required in a way, right? And I say effort, not in terms of the physical output, but in terms of the psychic or mental output, right? You don't have to psych yourself up for it. It almost becomes automatic. It's a habit, right? It requires less effort. And if you can get to that point in your health, results just keep flying by. However, most people don't get there because they don't program themselves properly. If you were to start a business and you were to say, I'm going to work on this business 2 days per week, and you go talk to a veteran entrepreneur, business owner, and you say, I don't understand why it's not working. What the fuck do you think? What do you think? You're working on it 2 days per week, right? How much effort can you realistically give to something 2 days per week? How much results do you think you're going to get going to the gym 2 days per week? It doesn't make sense. Just use common sense. I'm not even talking about from a physical output because you're like, Gino, I work out really hard, right? 2 days per week, I grind it, right? That's fantastic. Here's the issue. It's not about the physical output. It's about the mental output, like I was mentioning. Is how much mental energy do you need to give in order to push yourself to go do that, right? How much self-negotiation comes into play where you position it towards the end of your day? I'm just going to go towards the end of my day. Why? Why are you putting yourself last, right? You got to take that out, okay? So the mental effort barrier is what you need to get over. And if you have something planned for the minority of your week, if you work on a business 2 days per week, if you work on your health 2 days per week, you're not going to set up that psychological routine and habit that takes out that self-negotiation and makes it almost a mindless effort. That's the stage you want to strive for. You know, people want a business because at some point they want their time back and they want to automate their income, right? They want to bring things in. Mailbox money. But the reality is you're not going to get there in a short period of time. You're going to have to give a lot of upfront effort until it becomes so routine and habitual that it makes things much simpler for you. You don't have to think about it, right? It's like, man, I didn't even go to work this week and I still got paid, right? Got paid while I sleep. Imagine if your results were automated as well, to a point where you didn't have to force yourself and motivate yourself to go to the gym. You just did, right? It just fucking happened. There was no self-negotiation. There's no mental effort on your part. It was just you go. That's it. You can get there. But it's going to require you to take out the self-negotiation, to take out victim mentality, to focus on responsibility, pointing the thumb and not the finger. Oh, I'm busy because my kids. I'm busy because of work. My business is this. No. You're the center point of your life, so fucking act like that's important, right? Your health is everything, period. If you don't have that, you don't have a family. You don't have a business because you're going to terminate your life. You need to be healthy. So I don't believe in encouragement. I believe in reinforcing good habits. And that comes with being honest and empathetic and truthful and objective and telling you, you aren't fucking doing it right. That's why you're not getting anywhere. And you don't even have a reason. So let's lower that mental barrier by just fucking doing it. You're thinking too much. You're self-negotiating. You're putting yourself in the psychic headspace. And that requires so much effort. Because now you have to fight yourself just to get to do something. Look, if I open and close my hand, I'm not thinking I need to extend all of my phalanges, right? I need to use my extensor muscles in my forearms, right? I need to open one finger at a time, one joint at a time. I just open my fucking hand, right? Doing requires very limited and sometimes no thinking at all. And that's the only way that you combat that negative mental whirlpool of doubt, fear, insecurity, self-negotiation. So get that shit out of your head. It's infectious. Doesn't belong there. It's not going to help you in business. It's not going to help you with your health. But all right, friends, that is the end of my cardio and the end of this video. So thanks for watching. If you're not subscribed, go ahead and subscribe down below. Fitness, mindset, nutrition, coaching, especially when it comes to business owners and entrepreneurs. So I will see you on the next one.